We wrap up the final group match day of the Champions League, fresh news on Pep Guardiola's future at Manchester City, and transfer news involving two young guns and one rather more vintage one. That and more, including your weekly Power Rankings hit. I'm Paddy, stepping into the breach for Matt, and this is your Onefootball Daily news. Firstly, to the final group match day of the Champions League, where most of the big questions were already answered before a ball was even kicked. Still, there was a bit of drama and plenty of goals, with Bayern Munich's comfortable win over Tottenham coming at a rather pricey cost. That cost was Kingsley Coman's to pay, with the injury-prone winger hyperextending his knee in the first half and subsequently tearing a capsule. There is no news as yet as to how long he'll spend on the sidelines, but hopes are it is weeks and not months, given the amount of football the Frenchman has already missed due to persistent foot injuries. In Paris, Neymar showed his softer side during PSG's 5-0 rout of Galatasaray. Having already laid off 2 assists and scored his first Champions League goal in a year, Neymar, who normally takes PSG's penalties, handed the ball instead to Edinson Cavani when his side won a spot kick late in the second half. Now these two, as we know, haven't always agreed on who takes the penalties for PSG, but it was nice to see Neymar's softer side when he handed that ball to Cavani, who of course is lacking games and goals this season. And among all the other games, Man City stuck out as well. They came from behind to win 4-0 in Zagreb against Dinamo, with Gabriel Jesus' hat-trick taking City past 500 goals under Pep Guardiola. That's an impressive feat, especially given it has come in just 199 games. Keeping with City and moving to the future of Pep Guardiola, there is renewed speculation that his season at City could be his last. The Athletic are claiming that the club are already drawing up contingency plans should the Spaniard decide that this one, his fourth, is the final one at the Etihad. This comes as further bad news for the club, which has slipped to a whopping 14 points from league leaders Liverpool on the Premier League table. It also comes on the back of his comments admitting that maybe City weren't able to match it anymore with the likes of Liverpool, Barcelona, Real Madrid and more. I guess the 800 million odd euros worth of players that he's brought in while at the club can only get you so far. And now to the transfer news and speculation, with some big clubs and some big players whirling around that transfer rumour mill. First up, it is Leroy Sané, who of course we remember came very close to joining Bayern Munich in the summer transfer window. If you remember correctly, and I probably don't need to remind you, City duly played him in the Community Shield and he subsequently suffered a pretty long-term knee injury. That killed any summer deal, but Bayern still seem keen on Sané, who has reportedly rejected another City contract offer, with his current one running until 2020. Sané is due back on the pitch in January, so any move may have to wait until the summer. Bayern fancy they can get him for a little bit under £100 million. Let's see if City see things the same way. Next up is Erling Haaland, and his goal-scoring exploits need no introduction to you well-informed lot, that's for sure. Now, the prices seem to be fluctuating between 35 million and 100, with a lot of clubs being linked with the in-form Norwegian. The latest is that Borussia Dortmund appears to be among the front-runners, with the Salzburg player reportedly visiting the club along with his super agent Mino Raiola. Dortmund have already said they're looking to buy a new striker in January, but of course 100 million is probably a bit too much for the club to pay. Certainly on the pitch, Haaland fits their MO. From two of the game's brightest young talents to one more mature one, at least sometimes, yes, it's time to talk about Zlatan. Just a few days ago, it seemed the legendary Swedish forward was close to a romantic return to AC Milan. Now, it seems Milan is disappointed with Ibra's reaction to the contract they have offered, which is worth around 9 million euros across the next 18 months if certain milestones are hit. Milan apparently expected a bit more enthusiasm than Ibra gave them, but that's probably their fault. After all, Zlatan only does what Zlatan wants. So what does that mean? Apparently this opens the door for a return to England with Everton. Either way, Zlatan has been linked with clubs all through Europe and all the way to Australia, so it seems a while before this transfer saga is settled. Now we're back with the Onefootball Power Rankings, where we look at the top 10 form players. Now there's some big sliders this week because a couple of guys have been rested in key encounters, but there's also some new faces thanks to some heroics. So let's get started. Starting at 10 is a man who slipped 3 positions in Marcus Rashford. After him follows 2 new faces with Adama Traore and Jamie Vardy, and despite 3 goals in his last 2 games, Timo Werner slips to 7th. In 6th is James Maddison of Leicester. So now to our top 5, and Lionel Messi comes in 5th. Yeah, he's a bit unlucky because he did of course score that hat-trick in the league over the weekend, but Barcelona then rested him in the Champions League, allowing a few people to jump above him. At 4 is Jadon Sancho, whose return to form after a few weeks on the naughty list at Dortmund has very much coincided with an uplift in his team's form. He certainly deserves this place at number 4. At 3, please welcome back to our power rankings, Dimitri Payet. 4 man of the match performances in his last 5 means this makes perfect sense. Marseille up to second after 6 straight wins, and Payet is key to that. In second, it's a new name again. It's Oussama Idrissi of AZ Alkmaar. The attacking midfielder has scored 3 goals and contributed 2 assists in his last 5 games, with 2 of those goals coming last time out against Zwolle. As a result of Idrissi's heroics, Alkmaar seem to be the only team challenging Ajax for the Eredivisie title this season. Last but not least, drum roll please, it's that man, Kylian Mbappe. The reasons are simple: 4 goals and 3 assists in his last 5 matches for PSG, taking him to 10 goals in his last 9 PSG matches. We think that he's more than deserving of this number 1 spot, but as always, you guys should let us know. So that's it for another Onefootball Power Rankings for this week, and indeed another Onefootball Daily News today. Thanks for joining. Let us know your comments on today's show. We'll see you tomorrow.